We are live. Now, before we go live, because we're going to talk about how to sell a bajillion dollars using a big event, I'm actually in Times Square, and I realized I wasn't looking at any of the cool sites. It's the first time I've ever been here. I wasn't looking at any of the cool sites because I was too busy getting my Facebook Live prepared. But what we're going to do, man, that's kind of cool. Look at all these advertisements. Look at all that money all everywhere. So anyway, we're going to talk about
the wedge building.
The triangle building. All right, one more time. We're going to turn this around, and then we're going to talk about making a ton of money. Is it up here?
Yeah, this is it.
Well, there's that giant building.
This is where the ball dropped.
Oh, and there's America. Go America. I hope everyone's enjoying this, and they're probably like, Jesus Christ, Kyle, you're such a tourist, and you need to talk about making money. Okay, so I am here with another guest, and this is my friend, Sean. Sean is the associate publisher for the Laissez-Faire imprint at Agora Financial, and they have folks like James Altucher on their team. They got the Navy SEAL survivalist guy Brandon Webb. He's a new addition, and they're actually growing that whole thing, not just with Brandon and James, but they're bringing on new talent this year too. It's going to be a big 2019. So what they're doing in preparation is they're going to start creating these big events, and the way the big event principles work and the step-by-step system that they use to get like a bajillion dollars on one of these events launches, anyone can use. If you're launching a book, if your business is opening, if you're starting a new website, if you're doing something like that, you can basically apply these same principles to drive traffic. And then once the traffic gets there, and when you're driving traffic, there's a kind of a mini process between like them saying I'm interested, getting the traffic there, then getting there and then selling them. And that's what Sean's going to discuss here. He's got his whole system laid out, and he's a pro at this, man. He showed me a flow chart this morning that made my eyes cross. There was just lines and boxes everywhere. I could hardly comprehend what was going on. All right, Sean, I've already introduced you.
You didn't give all my credibility. I'm also the publisher of Mark Ford, otherwise known as Michael Masterson's business.
That's a big...
He did the book Ready, Fire, Aim.
Yeah, which is on my recommended reading list. Like, there's like 4 books on my recommended reading list written by him.
Yeah, so I'm his publisher too. So I work with James Altucher, I work with Mark Ford, and I work at Agora Financial. And one of the things that we do when we're trying to do either a launch or a really big idea where we have some data that says, hey, this is worth like scaling in a very, very big way. I have a system that, is very much based off of Jeff Walker's launch formula, if you've ever read that. But essentially, what we've done at Agora is really whittle it down to just 4 simple steps. And if you have any sort of event, webinar, it could be a live stream, it could be a summit, it could be anything along those lines where you basically have to have a ton of people with their butt in a seat getting your sales message. And again, this is something that like Russell Brunson talks about with perfect webinar formula and stuff like that. This is essentially a distillation of everybody who talks about these sort of like live or webinar event type promos. And there's essentially 4 ways to structure this. You have to think about, first, you have to think about acquisition. And your acquisition are your squeeze pages, your sign up pages, driving traffic to those.
Okay, so acquisition is getting the sign up, getting the customer.
Yep.
Right, so that's what that means.
And there's a lot of different stuff that you can do there. The second stage in that is engaging that particular audience that basically you got to raise their hand. The whole sign-up acquisition process, you're trying to get people to raise their hand and say, yeah, I'm interested in hearing more about this. The second stage is getting everybody who raised their hand to say, hey, like, how can I excite you a little bit about this before the event? And what you typically see there, you can do like 2 to 7, I've even seen 10 days of what's called hot list warm-up content. The people that you get to sign up, they sign up to your hot list.
Okay.
Over the following days.
Can you want to define hot list? Because it wasn't until I started working at, thanks, I got a message and I'm trying to get rid of it. It wasn't until I started working at Agora Financial that I actually
see Tyler Reyes on here. So Tyler and I just worked on a huge webinar event together that is killer. We actually just got done filming for it, and it's going to kick some ass.
All right.
I cannot wait.
Define hot list really quick before I forget.
So hot list basically is just, that's your list of people a segment that you've taken from your total list of everybody that you have access to. That could be phone numbers, it could be email addresses, it could be even physical addresses at home. This is the group of people that responded to whatever you sent to them and said, yes, I'm interested in hearing more. They are hot. So it's a list of people that are hot for the opportunity.
Right. They saw some sort of teaser saying that, hey, there's something awesome coming your way. And you asked them, raise your hand.
Yep.
And the way they raise their hand is by they enter their email address. So essentially, what must a copywriter be able to do to get them to raise their hand and give the email address? I'm talking practical now. Like what, and get a little bit in the weeds. Like what should a copywriter do to make this happen?
In order to get people to raise their hand?
Yep. You've got an event, and I'm going to create a squeeze page where they can sign up. What now?
So the most important part of that is to drive as much traffic as possible to those squeeze pages. There's a lot of things you can do to do that, but typically what you will see is you'll see a sort of combination of email marketing, space ads and banners, any sort of display, and then you'll also have advertorial or editorial, like actual essays about the idea that you have that simply end with and this thing that I was just talking about, well, click this link and I'll tell you a little bit more about an event that I'm doing about it.
Okay, so they click the link, you basically have some sort of like call to action, like a pop-up maybe or something like that.
Yep.
This, someone's asking me a question in a message, and I want to tell him to come on the live and ask the question. Like, he's right here, like, I wonder if I can type to him really quick. Oh my god, that's a really long question, bro. I'll have to circle back to this.
Kyle is literally typing a message to whoever just asked this question right now.
Alright, I told him to check in. So anyway, right, so we've talked about you basically get them to raise their hand. Now what happens to that customer? I keep getting messages, Jesus. Alright, so now they've said, here, I'm interested, tell me more, what do you do next?
So what you then have is a list of people that are super interested. And there are a lot of things that you can do to juice your returns. A couple of hacks, like for example, like in that first step of acquiring names and getting people to raise their hands, you can include what's called a self-liquidating offer. So when people put in their email address or put in their SMS number into a sign-up page, you take them to an actual offer, like a cheapo, a tripwire thing. And basically what that does is it gets them to spend something. It gets a certain percentage of the people that are interested in an idea to spend something. And if you are collecting money, what that allows you to do is that increases your ability to spend on ads. So, for example, if you were only able to acquire, say, spend $50 to $60 a name to get them onto your hot list, well, with the self-liquidating offer, now you can increase that to $80, $100, $150, especially if you think your self-liquidating offer is converting very well.
Right. So let's take it higher level. So basically, you have this squeeze page you want to get people to. So what you'll do is you'll pay for ads, and you'll say, check out this thing, check out my squeeze page or something like that. And you know the ad will cost you X number of dollars for eventually someone will sign up. You get 100 people and when like 3 people sign up, you realize it costs $30 to get those 3 people $10 a name or something like that. So what he's saying you can do is as soon as they sign up, you can give them like a super quick and easy offer that basically pays for the cost of your ad spend, and then you can actually spend more money on ads so that you can break even in hopes, and this is all in hopes that when they get to your webinar, your big event, and these events aren't for $10 offers. They're not for $50 offers. These events are for $2,000 offers, $3,000 and $5,000 offers.
I've seen webinar events sell $10,000, $15,000. I've seen webinar events like successfully sell $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 offers. And that's the advantage of putting on an event. It's much easier to close from a webinar than from a 40-page sales letter. That's just a fact.
Okay, so we got them on the squeeze page. We got their email address or their text number, whatever, and then immediately, all right, we jump to what we call a self-liquidating offer to try to increase how much money we got.
And that's optional. You don't have to have that, but it helps.
Right. That's totally like advanced techniques. What we really want to do now is talk about, we're going to heat up this hot list. So it's already hot. They signed up. They're interested.
Yep.
So what do you do to build up that interest and get them, basically what you explain it, but you got to make sure they get to the event. So what happens between the time they put their information in and the actual event?
So keep in mind, when somebody signs up for this event, you're trying to gather names for 7-10 days. So people are going to commit, but you have to keep them committing. And so you do that by sending them something every single day that they're on that hot list. That could be a simple email. It could be anything with a CTA, anything to get them to do a little, anything that requires them to actually do something that commits them to this thing that they've raised their hand for. I think Ted Thomas calls it getting people to nod their head. You want them nodding their head throughout the entire, what's called the hot list warm-up series, or an engagement sequence. It's also been called a training sequence. But the whole goal of any of these different sequences are to overcome objections before the event itself, to get people hyped and excited, and then also to get them to commit and engage. And that can be disguised in any number of ways. It can be done through a series of testimonial engagements. It can be done through what's called a training series. And again, all that is just to overcome objections.
So let's say we had to take it down to basics. I've got the name. Time to start warming them up in an engagement or training series. And so assume I'm a freelance copywriter, right? I've got a client. The client knows nothing, right? The client just I need people to go to my event. I hired a copywriter. He should take care of everything. So what's a copywriter to do if they know they've got an engagement series? Should they do 3 emails? Should they do 5 emails? Should they do 10? And then what's really important to cover in, let's say, the 3 to 5 emails?
So let me put it this way. One thing you have to keep in mind, especially if you're an entrepreneur or a business owner or somebody trying to get into internet marketing, the lighting is terrible.
Yeah.
Is that one of there's an opportunity cost to any of these webinar event warm-up sequences, because every day that you're sending this list, warm-up emails, hot list engagement emails, you're not sending them anything else because you want all their attention to be focused on this effort. So, that's why typically you'll see anywhere from 3 to 10 days is the max for a hot list build, because that's the max that you can really hold people's attention anyway. Mm-hmm. But what you'll commonly see, the most successful webinars that I've ever seen always have something in the range of 3 to 5 days.
Okay, so when you're writing these things, here comes a plug. When you're writing these things, make sure that you are focusing on the 4 pillars of copywriting that I'm always saying in all the videos. This is where I'm going to make my plug. So I hope you enjoyed all this content so far. But you need to remember that you're writing copy. So you do have to continue to stoke their curiosity and increase the intensity of their desire during this period of 3 to 5 emails.
Yep.
You do that by implementing the 4 pillars I've created or I've identified. And I'm going to sum it up with a mnemonic device I'm going to call NESB. New, easy, safe, and big, okay? I'm writing an entire book on this topic. If you want more information, please go to kylethewriter.com/swipe. You can get my entire swipe file for free, and I'll also be updating you about the book, which should be coming out in a couple weeks. If someone could type that in the comments. Also, I have a question for whoever's watching right now. I am on the Kyle Milligan copywriter account, right? I have made the mistake before where I went live from my personal account, and all of a sudden, my mom was watching, and people, I was like, well, you guys aren't copywriters? What's happening here?
I see Tyler's dad gum right in there.
Yeah, Tyler, are you following my copywriter page, bro? I hope that's not my personal we're on right now. Anyway, yeah, so type in the comments, please, kylethewriter.com/swipe, and let me know that we're definitely on the Kyle the Copywriter Facebook page and not my personal page. Okay, so we are using the 4 pillars of copywriter. He said, indeed. Great. Okay, so we're using the four pillars of copywriting, new, easy, safe, and big, to stoke the intensity and the curiosity for this big event that's coming, okay?
Yep.
That's threaded into each one. Now, let's say we only have 3 emails to make something happen, okay?
Yep.
What should I include in email 1, email 2, and email 3?
So, I would say the first email that you always have to have is just something kind of introducing the overall idea. Something that basically, imagine it like a handhold, where people got to your sign-up page, they saw the idea that you wanted to get them interested in. So it had to be new, easy, safe, big. And what then has to happen on day 1 of your hot list is you have to start explaining what makes it new, what makes it easy, what makes it safe, and especially what makes it big. And you don't want to do any sort of event-style marketing unless it's really, really effing big. So that would be day 1. You want to sort of handhold and give just a little bit more information than what was on the squeeze page itself. And one of the easiest objections to really overcome on that first day of copy is very simply, why the hell are you doing this? Like, what is this event even about, and why are you putting it on? And if you just have your first email in any sort of warm-up sequence be like answering that question, you should be golden. So
okay, that's it. So we're just going to basically cover what's happening. Why is this? We're essentially saying why it's so big, and then we have little elements. It's basically like a lead. Essentially, you're writing a lead in day one, but like abbreviated.
Yep.
Okay, so that's cool. Day one's the lead. You're building hype, and it's huge. So day two, what's happening?
So, and especially also for day one, it's also very good to go over any sort of credibility, anything that makes you seem like you're worth listening to, and just get that out of the way as quickly as possible.
And it's definitely important in your lead, like when you come out of the headline, to quickly establish that you should pay attention to what in your headline, you're going to say something enormous and fucking out of this world anyway. So you got to go ahead very early in the lead and be like, hey, by the way, I'm a doctor. By the way, I've been on Forbes. By the way, I've done... Like, you got to say something very quickly to catch that. Like, hey, I know this sounds crazy, but I am a credible source, and you want to do that. Like, in any lead, and if you consider day one email a mini lead, the same thing applies, okay? And that's part of the safe, all right? And new, easy, safe, and big. Safety comes in the fact that you feel security, and you get security through credibility. That's an element of safety, okay?
Absolutely true.
All right, so cool. We've established day one is it's a mini lead. All right, now we're into day two.
So day two, the most common thing that I see and that I've seen done successfully is you want to introduce some like testimonials. You want to start actually showing some sort of social proof that either this thing that they're signing up for, or that who you are as a guru or a person, that it actually is going to have the effects or results that you desire. Anything that's in the big promise that you have been making for the past 2 days, both on the squeeze page and on the first day of the engagement sequence, like you want to start actually throwing in some proof that people have done what you're talking about and succeeded. That's what I most commonly see kind of land right smack dab in the middle.
So if I'm a viewer and I'm trying to get a big hyped event, like if I'm watching this on Facebook Live right now and I'm like, okay, so I've got to prove this has happened before. How do I do that if my thing is new and big? How do I prove that?
So, I mean, that you could do a whole video on like other ways to gather social proof. But if you have a list already, and typically you only want to put on an event if you already have a list that you can sell to. But people want to share their story, and you can find like, basically you could do a segment of like maybe some of your best responders, some of your best customers, and you can just say, hey, let's do a beta test. And what you do is the product that you're selling in your webinar, give it to your favorite people and say, hey, what do you think of this? Use this, and like for this ultra discounted price. And that does a couple of different things. One, that gives you a bank of testimonials that you can then use. And two, it also gives you initial data on like how well that idea is converting, which you can then use to shop around to different affiliates and get people on board for your hot list build.
This definitely sounds like another advanced technique.
Super advanced technique. Like
the self-liquidating offer we talked about earlier, as soon as they sign up, that's an advanced technique. Doing a beta test is definitely an advanced technique. This is something where, I don't know at what point you'd introduce you probably do this before you start building your hot list, because what you do is you'd introduce the beta test, you get a couple people on board, you get the testimonials back. Now you can use those testimonials in your day two email. Okay? So let's say we're not advanced. Let's say we're still a freelance guy. We've got 3 days, 3 emails. I've got to show that I've got a new big thing. Now how do I make it look, how do I proof something that's brand new and big, and I got very limited resources. Like what's a quick and dirty way to prove that?
Well, ideally you're only selling something that actually has some proof behind it as well. So that's a good day to, like, if you have screenshots, if you have like anything on your phone that has like a dollar amount, any charts, any sort of proof that sort of backs up the idea and shows that we'll have the desired result in the promise that you made on day one.
All right, so day one is going to be your lead. So it flows just like a sales letter. You have a big lead with a bunch of claims and a lot of hype. Day two is going to be like, let's back up some of this stuff. Let's prove some of this stuff and say this is actually, and you want to do this with like the intention of creating hype, right? So and the way I like to use this is, so the 4 pillars, right? New, easy, safe, and big. Safe's alter ego is predictability. So safe is Clark Kent, and predictability is Superman. So if I can prove a pattern that has been in repetition, then I can prove that this fits the mold and could and should deliver similar results to the last pattern that we saw. Okay? Again, writing a book on these 4 principles. If you are interested, you can go to kylethewriter.com/swipe. I saw Tyler type that in the comments. I appreciate you, my man. You can smash like for Tyler for being a cool guy. All right, so now we've gone through the lead in day 1. We've kind of given some proof in day 2. What's day 3 about?
So day 3 is typically where you dig into the weeds a little bit. You want to overcome any objections people might have to actually using what you're trying to sell. If it's a financial product, typically that's where you start to reveal the actual system that you use, or the idea behind it. If it's any sort of health product, it's, you know, like the actually getting into the weeds of, you know, how you would use this successfully. But essentially, you know, day 1, it's objections about credibility. Day 2, it's objections about, like, you know, whether this will have the desired effect. Day 3, it's objections about how easy it is.
Okay, so there we go. Back to the 4 principles. Now we're proving that anybody can do this.
Yeah, and you want to prove that it's safe as well. So, like, if days 1 and 2 are about new and big, day 3 is going to be all about, like, easy and safe.
All right.
So what we've done so far is sort of talk about, like, the first 2 stages of any event promotion. So you have acquisition, getting people to raise their hand.
Right.
You have stage 2, which is getting people excited and overcoming their objections. Caldini wrote, like, persuasion. You're doing a lot of persuading in the warm-up build. And then the 3rd stage is the event itself and the day of the event. And that is, you know, all your sort of supplementary copy on that day is going to be get asses in seats. You want to be napalm bombing people with SMS text messages, emails, phone calls if you have that ability. You want butts in seats because the amount of money you can make from an event promotion is entirely dependent on how many butts are in seats watching your copy. That's it.
Right. And I guess we're at our spot.
This is it.
So,
all right.
The event itself is copy, right?
You talk and I'll pay.
Okay, yeah. So for the event itself, it's going to be all copywriting, right? Like you wrote the copy. That's the sales letter. You know, we've already done all that work, and that's what we cover every day, all day in this channel is how to write that copy and all the elements, the 4 pillars, right? So that's done like before the fact. So we got the event. Everyone's having a good time. Like usually, it's like your guru being interviewed. And could you pop the trunk? I've got a suitcase back there. Thank you. All right, cool. So the next stage is going to be after the event. We're about to go watch James Altucher perform some stand-up at a comedy club. All right. So what do we do after we have the event? We can wrap up on this pretty quick. So we've had the event. We're on stage 4. Now what's up?
Stage 1, get them to raise your hands. Stage 2, get them excited, hot and horny. Stage 3, butts and seats.
You've been dying to say that.
I've been dying to say that. I love thinking of it that way.
Okay.
And then stage 4, selling them. After the event, you want to follow up with your leads and make sure that they see your offer, see any recaps. There are a lot of different things you can do that I'm not going to get into. But basically, stage 4 is after the event, and you are just trying to make sure that everybody that rose their hand or anybody else gets a chance to actually buy what you are selling. And that's it. The 4 stages of any sort of event promotion.
And you can kind of go nuts at that point, man. Like, just like you can hit them up like 2 to 3 times a day. Another thing you can do is be like, oh, hey, by the way, if you couldn't make the event, here's the replay. Okay, so you can first introduce, you can either do the transcript first and say, hey, if you didn't make the event, here's the replay.
Yep.
Or you could say, here's a transcript.
Yep.
And then the next thing would be the opposite. So the next day I say, hey, we've got the replay for you here. You can check that out if you want. If they don't watch the replay or they still haven't bought...
I have to stand down in the street because Kyle is so short.
All right, thanks for belittling me in front of my audience. Okay, so so you can follow up with the actual replay, and then if you still haven't bought, you follow up with the transcript. Maybe they just aren't keen on sitting there for an hour through the video, and maybe they'd rather just read it and scroll through. So maybe you get them on the actual transcript page, or like an HTML page where it's just the words. And other than that, you can get creative too, I guess. You know.
Yeah, you can also pitch people just to like straight to order form. You can send people to, you can hold an encore rather than a replay. That seems a little bit more exigent, because then you can say things in copy like, hey, so many people signed up for this that even though we were only going to do it once, well, we're going to do it again, just for you. One
more quick and easy thing is offer them so if we're doing a $2,000 service for 1 year, you can try to go ahead and say, hey, I saw you haven't signed up. Maybe you would take a 3-month trial at whatever 2,000 divided by 3 is, and try to get them on like that. And that way it feels like a less huge commitment. Maybe they saw the replay, maybe they saw the transcript, but just couldn't bring themselves to drop $2,000 or $3,000.
Can I give 2 more pro tips on that?
Yep.
Pro tip number 1, offer them a payment plan. Let them pay in installments. And then offer 2, offer financing. If you can let them finance a product, literally go into PayPal and PayPal financing so that they can buy your product without feeling any of that like initial hit to their checking account, that's huge. So
that's all we got, Copy Squad. We're going to be late for this thing. James is going on in a second and try to catch him. Never seen him do stand-up before. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Thank me, man.
Thank Sean. I got to thank Sean for tuning in and being on and giving us all that wisdom. Smash like. I haven't seen enough hearts and likes, and it's making me depressed. Smash like. That's how you get likes and threaten your audience.
Apparently.
All right. Peace out, Copy Squad. Thanks for watching.